Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Wendy here from Toonpish Crafts and I hope you're doing okay. Now, I had a brainwave recently. It suddenly occurred to me I could use something in a different way. So in this video, I'm going to show you what I mean. Now, unfortunately, I pressed the wrong button on my camera at some point. I don't even know when. And I filmed a lot of it in slow motion. But we've speeded it up. But it might not be the quality that I usually come out with. So I can't go back. Once you've filmed something, you've filmed it. Once you've made it, you've made it. I'm not going to make it again because I filmed it incorrectly. So I'm just going to have to show you in a speeded up version and hopefully it won't look that bad. Honestly, I didn't even realise I was filming in slow motion until it started to be edited, but by then it was too late. It happens. I'm not perfect. I'm certainly not technical. Anyway, I hope at the end of this you get a video that you actually can watch and is entertaining, because what I decided to do in this video and this brainwave that I had hopefully will open doors for a lot of people to do something completely different. I absolutely love the results, so I hope you do too. So these are pieces of Angelina film that I have put together. Some are one piece, some are several pieces. They're all the same colour. I was basically experimenting to see if this would work, and I thought I'm going to use these pieces. And I really quite like the colour, to be honest. So I'm putting them into this mould. Now, this mould was given to me by my son last Christmas, and I apologise, Daniel, for not using it sooner. But it's come in handy because it's the right depth for these skull pieces to go into. It's a test tube vase mould for flowers, and I think it will be ideal for this project. I'm going to be using Let's Resin casting resin for this one. I do have a discount code for Let's Resin, and that will be in the description box below for several different countries. I'm also trying out the new Let's Resin mixer. This is their AI cordless mixer. It's new to the market and I'm trying it out. Now, I'm going to be trying it for a few weeks before I give my honest opinion of what I think of it. But for now, you can see it's beautiful blue and it's working. I'm also using Let's Resin debubbling machine, and if you haven't seen the video where I tried this out for the first time, I'll link that in the top right hand corner. So I've mixed up around 250 ml of the casting resin, and I've added some black pigment to it. I've put it into the degassing machine for 8 minutes in a silicone cup. Now, Let's Resin do say that plastic works better, but I do tend to use silicone cups more than plastic, so I wanted to see how it would work. And although there was a lot of resin in there, it just didn't quite get to the top, which is perfect. I didn't want it spilling out anywhere. But you can press the button on the front of the machine to let some of the air back in so that the resin can drop if it's likely to go over the edge. Now, I did actually say in the previous video that I probably wouldn't use it if I used coloured resin, but this is a solid black colour and I don't want bubbles in there at all. So I'm pouring this mould about half full. I want to create a black base for my skulls to be anchored into. Now, with any dark colour, you can't see what's underneath it, so I'm using a micro brush to go around the outside edge to get rid of any stuck air that may be in a 90-degree angle, which is extremely likely. Now, I want these film dichroic pieces to sit inside the black resin so that they're solid when the resin cures. I don't want them floating up. Plastic will float. So I'm burying them in the black resin to keep them down. When you've got black behind dichroic film, it does show up the colour a lot more. The one with the holes in the socket that I'm putting in now is only one piece of film. It's Angelina film and it's very thin and doesn't want to sit the way I want it to. But I get it in the right position and I let these pieces cure up. About 4 hours later, I'm going to use Let's Resin Blue Chameleon Flakes. And although I didn't press record to start with, you can see what I'm doing. I am brushing over the black. This black is sticky, it's not completely cured, so I know it will hold the flakes down nicely. I am not worrying that I can't get underneath the skulls. I really want the skulls to sit on the black, which is why I'm doing it this way round. I want the blue behind the skulls, but not underneath the skulls, if you catch my drift. Once I've completely coated that in the blue, I'm going to go around with a cotton bud and clean up all the edges. I really want the edges to be not coloured, to be clear, because I'm going to put clear resin on the top so that we can see these skulls through the sides. So I really don't want the colour on the edges. It doesn't take much. Baby white and cotton bud and a little bit of isopropyl alcohol and they come right off. Now I'm going to fill up the front with clear resin. So this time I'm using a larger amount of resin, so I'm going to use the large resin mixer. Now this resin mixer is very fast, it only takes 40 seconds, but it doesn't scrape the sides or the bottom, so you still have to do that yourself. But when you're making large amounts of resin, it is fantastic. Not so good for small amounts though. So I scrape the sides and the bottom, and as you can see, the little swirlies in there means that bit needs mixing in, but it doesn't take long at all. It's a lot quicker. And I am warming up this resin with the heat gun because it's cold resin, and I'm going to put it into the bubble removing machine. It is better to use warm resin in the machine so that the bubbles can come out quicker. Now it is better to put your bottles in a bowl of warm water to heat up each part separately. On this occasion I didn't do that, I've completely forgot, so I used the heat gun, but I did warm it up a little bit too much. Once I'm happy that it's all mixed, then I transfer it over to the bubble removing machine, trying not to get it covered in resin. This is a large cup, and as you can see, it goes into the curing machine really easily. I set it to 8 minutes, which is the time that works great for me, and I'm still fascinated sitting watching the bubbles coming out. When it's done, it automatically releases the pressure, and I have crystal clear resin that is nice and warm. I use a little isopropyl alcohol on the top to get rid of any bubbles that are floating, and the suction of that cup on the silicone mat was quite extensive. I just wasn't ready for that. I wasn't expecting that at all. But it was just where the air had come out from underneath the seal at the bottom of the cup. It was a large cup. Now I'm just going to pour the clear resin over the top of these skull pieces that I've made. I am pouring quite slowly. I know that the skulls are going to harbour air, but I'm not worried if I can't see those bubbles because they're going to be inside the skull. But I'm filling this mould up with clear resin and hopefully it'll cover up all of the skull pieces. As usual, I guesstimated how much resin that I needed. As luck would have it, it just about went to the top of the mould. But that little skull in the top wasn't anchored on both sides, and that proves an issue later on. So I do go around with a micro brush to try and get rid of any air that I can see, any bubbles that I can see through these skulls, and I'll have a little bit of a poke on a couple of them, see if I can get any of the air out underneath. As I said, I'm really not bothered. If I can't see the bubbles, why would I be bothered that they're in there? But it's quite fascinating to have a little bit of a poke and see the air come out. There's quite a lot under that one. But I did worry about creating a vacuum underneath the skull and it putting it out of shape, and a couple of times I had to pull up the film by putting the brush underneath in the hole to lift the film up again because the air coming out had sucked the film in. I should have just left it really, but it was fascinating seeing the air come out. Honestly, I'm just like a kid sometimes. Let's poke it here, let's poke it there, let's see what we can get out of this one. Oh dear. But in the end, I just left it. Once I was happy that I had a more or less bubble-free piece, I squirted the piece with isopropyl alcohol and I left it to cure. Now the following day you can see that one of the skulls on the top is sticking out of the top of the resin. That really irritated me. I did not want that at all. So when I demolded it and had a good look at it, I also noticed that the resin had buckled slightly due to the heat, and I wasn't happy with that. That was due to me heating up the resin far too much, and with the depth of resin, which was over 1 centimetre, is not ideal for casting resin. So the two combined, I wouldn't say it buckled, it just came away from the edges slightly. Now these are the little flower vases that come with the set that my son had given me. I'm sure you've seen these moulds around before. They are very common and easy to get hold of on Amazon. I'll try and find the link for one and I'll put it in my Amazon storefront if you want this mould. And I wanted to see what colour would go better behind the skulls. We have the clear, the blue, and the purple. Now actually, because it has a blue background, I think the blue one on this occasion works better. So that's the one I'm going to use. But I'm really not happy with the finish. So I'm going to have to fix that for my own peace of mind. I do end up giving this piece a top coat. If it was you, would you give it a top coat? I definitely needed to fix it. Now you're probably asking yourself by this point, how do you make these, Wendy? How do you make these skulls? And how do you make something out of dichroic film in this manner? Well, these are all my offcuts of dichroic film. I do actually sell this on Toonpish.com, so these are all my offcuts. And I do have a lot of offcuts. I'm actually thinking of putting together offcut packs on Toonpish.com as well. So I've just taken out 2 different colours. I've put one on top of the other and I'm heating it with a heat gun. This Angelina film sticks to itself. It does need quite a lot of heat, and that's why I'm wearing gloves because I don't want to burn my hands. But this little heat gun that I'm using doesn't give out that much heat. If you use the Let's Resin heat gun, be prepared, that blows hot, like a paint stripper. It really is hot. My little heat gun really is just one step up from a hairdryer. But it does blow, and it blows the film away quite a lot. So I try to keep my hand in there to hold the film down. Really, you could do with more substantial heat resistant gloves. These are just my ordinary resin gloves. I could have done with oven gloves probably. But this film, depending on what colours you use, turns beautiful colours. So I have here a little skull that I've made from a mould. It's just a resin skull. Now it does have felt on the bottom, and that does cause a little bit of a problem later, but it is what it is, and that's what I used. And I'm going to tape the Angelina film that's now kind of dichroic over the back of the skull, wrapping it around the front. I have made several of these, and this is by far the easiest way to make it. And make sure that the film is flat to the face. And then I get my heat gun out. Again, it's on low setting, it's not much more than a hairdryer. And as I heat up the film, I push it into the indentations of the skull behind so that it forms a shell. Sometimes I let it get hotter if I need more detail, and if you heat it up again it will lose the detail that you've already made, so you have to keep pushing the film against your mould wherever it is. I mean, you could do this with anything, it doesn't have to be a skull. It's that time of year. I'm using a skull. I like skulls. But you could do it with a lot of different shapes and forms to get a mask type effect. The more you heat up the Angelina film, the more it shrinks. And I really want the film to go right the way around the outside of this skull. Once I've got the outside shape, I can then go in and make sure I pick up the details. Now, the eye sockets and the nose is quite fragile, and that's why I ended up with holes in some of the pieces I tried this with to start with. You're better off doing it very slow and just easing it into those areas, because you will put your thumb through it if you're not careful. I also found that 2 sheets of the Angelina film was the perfect amount. 1 was too thin, 3 was too thick to push it into the detail. You can buy terraform machines. Now that is heat plastic sucked down over an item, and this is the same principle. Basically heating up the plastic to take on the shape which is underneath it. When I'm happy with the shape that I've got, I let it cool down, and then I can take the plastic off. It doesn't take much to cool down, by the way. I can take the sticky tape off, and I now have the Angelina film wrapped around the skull. Now obviously I need to get the original skull out. And because it has felt on the bottom, the Angelina film does like sticking to the felt, so that was a little tricky. But you can keep all your offcuts and use them in other pieces, in smaller pieces, or you can add lots of pieces to a bigger item. So don't forget to keep your offcuts. And I'll link a video in the top right hand corner showing you how you can use offcuts quite happily in resin pieces. So I decided to cut around the back of this skull to get the piece of Angelina dichroic film off, and I now have a mimic of the skull in the film. And I do apologise for it being out of focus, but you get the picture. It's beautiful colour too. I do love Angelina film. Now, as I said, I did go on to top coat the piece. I then sanded it to an inch of its life. I rounded the edges, and my finished piece I absolutely love. It's very odd, and I like that about it. It's very bizarre, and that's just what I was looking for. Something different. And of course this is a vase, so I got some synthetic white and black roses and put a couple in there. And I absolutely love this piece. I love the fact that it can give me something I didn't know I could do, and I hope you've enjoyed this video too. So come back and see me next week, because you never know what I'm going to be doing. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. Have a wonderful crafting week, and bye for now.